Most people struggle to create content that brings them paying clients. They buy templates, follow so-called gurus, and you know I'm putting that in air quotes, and influencers, and they're always looking for the magic bullet. Spoiler alert, the magic bullet is inside of you. Maybe you're feeling stuck. Maybe you're feeling so stuck that you're not creating content at all. You may not know what to say, and you may feel like you're afraid of being seen and heard. I get it. Maybe you aren't even that clear on what it is that you're offering, so you don't have a way to explain it in a way that makes people understand how very important it is that they work with you to change their life. Leveraging your human design is the best way to create content that makes you more money without being a slave to the algorithm. The next round of Content by Design starts soon. Get on the wait list. You'll be the first to know when the doors open, and you'll access some really big bonuses when you join us right away. The link is in the show notes for you. Now back to the show. Welcome to Unjaded. I'm your host, Vickie Dickson. This is a podcast with a human design spin on building the life, the relationships, and the business that you were made for. Let's dive in. Welcome to Unjaded. Welcome back if you are joining us as a regular listener, and welcome if this is your first time. Today, I have Sarah Mertzlufft in the room with me. And Sarah is many things. She is a business owner. She is a manifesting generator with a 6-2 profile. And right now, she is focused on building her new business that is all about microdosing. So we are going to be talking just a little bit about that in this episode, and her human design and her experience in the Content by Design course. And then I will definitely be having Sarah back for an episode all about microdosing, but she'll give us some hints here as well. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Vickie. I'm so excited to be here.
So we have had kind of manifesting generator mornings and confession time. If you're a manifesting generator and you're listening in here, you probably have experienced things like this before. You know, I was messaging Sarah and saying, can you give me 2 extra minutes? And she's like, yep, I'll give you 5 because my daughter's up now. And then somebody can find the Zoom link, and they just on and on it goes. And that is often the experience of a manifesting generator because we are moving quickly. Our spiritual purpose in life is to find the fastest way to do things and to speed up linear time. And I feel like we do that. Do you feel like you do that, Sarah?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's a constant battle of like going too fast and breaking things, right?
Yeah, all the time. Yes. So you've had kind of a winding path in your career, which is typical of any manifesting generator. Can you walk us through, like, say, the last 10 years in your career? What have you done?
Oh my gosh, yes. So the last 10 years, I graduated college and went into technical stuff in banking and changed paths in that like many times, which I didn't even realize until actually this moment that like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was supposed to be doing, is finding different places what I was passionate about. And then we went through a little bit of infertility and we had our daughter. And so I knew that I couldn't go back to work. So I decided that the corporate world anyway. So I decided that coaching was right for me. And it has been a very winding up and down all the way through fertility coaching, anger coaching, intuition coaching, web design. And now I'm kind of landing in the microdosing space, which has held my attention for about a couple months now. And I mean, I've done microdosing for years, so I love it. And I'm so excited that now there's like, you know, other people that are interested in it, and it is starting to become, you know, a business for me.
Okay. So some people would hear you say that and say a couple months. And I feel like we get that a lot, right? Like we feel a little bit inside of us. I'm saying we because Sarah and I are both manifesting generators, and we have that inside of us a lot where we almost don't want to admit that we're trying something else. Do you have that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Right now, thinking like, oh yeah, a couple months. I'm like, wow, that's like, I sound so new at this, right? And it's such as a manifesting generator, but that's what we're supposed to do, right? Like we're supposed to be bouncing around. And I am so grateful for finding you and this work and Content by Design, because it's just like, oh yeah, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And when I'm passionate about something, it's my passion comes through, right? And if I'm not passionate about something, people can tell. Yeah. So I do think it's for all the manifesting generators out there, stand in that power, because it is our power.
Yeah, it's a superpower, really. And it's like, that's the way that we magnetize the people, places, and experience to us that we're meant to have. But we're so conditioned to think that it's something that's wrong with us. So I love, and then you also have that 6-line profile, right? So, for the first 30 years of your life, you were really playing in the trial and error and getting things wrong and trying too many things and doing it all at once and all of that jazz. So yeah, anyone with a 3rd-line profile or even a 6-line profile and a Mani-Gen, it's like, oh my gosh, you've got it coming at you from all angles, all of this conditioning.
Yes, all the time. Yeah. And you just think like, I mean, especially to like the age of, like my parents are boomers and love them, but they're like, why are you always changing? Why can you not stick to one thing? Like, just sit down and, be quiet, sit still. And I'm just like, I can't.
Yes,
like,
that's not
I
how you're
have to be
built.
doing all the things. Right.
Yeah, you have a
And it's
highly
so nice to know. It's so nice to know that like I'm supposed to be this way and like that's okay.
There's freedom in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when we first crossed paths, it was actually because you were a guest on someone else's podcast. And I had been binging another podcast and I heard you and I was drawn to you immediately. And I was like, oh, I got to find out more about this woman. And then we've gone through a few of your coaching iterations together because I've used some of your services and we've worked together a little bit back and forth. And it's just been, I don't know, I find it magical to work with other Mani-Gens because I feel like there's a pace that we can keep that others often, like we burn people out sometimes. If we have other types that are working for us, sometimes it's good. Sometimes we need that, but sometimes they can't keep up to us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like, you had used some of my services and then I had used some of yours. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, like it's a lot. And to like, then to just sit back and be like, but that's okay. Like, cause I learned too about my emotional wave as a part of this. And that's another big thing that's like, it's been so helpful to like learn about. And like, when I'm in my low of my emotional wave, I think everything sucks and I want to quit everything. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, but just learning to ride that out as a part of who I am and who I'm designed to be has been so helpful too.
Yeah. How are you finding the microdosing with your emotional wave? Like you must play in those together, I would assume.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I think it's all about the data, right? Like I'm such a data person. So just kind of collecting it all and saying, okay, like now I'm at a low and I'm microdosing. So what is this like? And I have found that I'm a lot more self-accepting. That's one of the things that microdosing has helped me just like with immensely is that I can say, it's okay. Like things are happening and I had an adverse reaction or, I didn't handle that how I should. And that's all right. Like I can still love myself through that.
Okay. So there's this myth about manifesting generators that we're scattered. And I know for me, sometimes I feel like I appear as though I'm scattered, even though I've got all my shit together in the background. But sometimes I feel like it presents a little bit more chaotic than that because our energy field, our aura can be a little bit chaotic. So do you find that the microdosing helps you to kind of bring in that chaotic bit of yourself?
No.
Okay.
But I also haven't worked on it, right? I do think you're so right. I've never really thought about how like chaotic I can seem. And like, well, my husband's a manifesting generator too. But like, for example, this week we moved recently and he was cleaning out the garage and he's like, I need your help. And so I go out and there's boxes of my stuff just like in the middle of the garage. And I was like, oh my gosh, like chaos, right? It's like, okay, like I'll go put all this up in my office. And so then like my office is in disarray. It's in chaos, right? But like you're saying, like my shit's together. I still like, yeah, the space is a mess, but like I can still move through and work through my stuff. So I think, maybe in terms of like I was saying, like the self-acceptance of microdosing, but I haven't ever really like, I've said like in my life, I don't want any more chaos. And I think I have worked a lot on my mindset with chaos and, being okay with it. But that wasn't on a microdosing journey. You know what I mean? Like that was just self work. Cause I mean, I have 2 kids that are close in age. I recently got a puppy. We moved, like
I didn't know
it was
about
chaotic, So it is. Yeah. And a puppy is chaos. Like who knew? I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I guess you just learn to like, I don't know. And like, it is beautiful, right? Like chaos can be so beautiful, I think. Like, especially when you can find your center and you can just be like, all right, all this stuff is happening around me and I can love myself through this.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What drew you to take the Content by Design course? We're going to talk a little bit about the Content by Design course because you are a graduate, even though we still have 2 more bonuses to deliver. But what drew you to Content by Design? What did you know about your business that needed that kind of program?
Well, as a manifesting generator, I was switching again, right? So I was moving in to microdosing, and microdosing has felt so different for me in terms of it was more of a pull, I think, than me like pushing to create something. And I've loved your stuff ever since we got, hooked up. And so I was just like, how can I talk about this in a way that I won't feel burnt out on, right? Because like I was feeling so burnt out on social media, and I had actually quit social media for months before I was like, but then I felt like, okay, I can go into content by design, and I know that like you're just such a good like you would be so accepting, right? If I wanted to go into Instagram, that would be fine. If I wanted to go into YouTube, that would be fine. And I knew I was going to learn whatever I needed to learn about myself so that I could, build this marketing part, the content part of my business, how I'm supposed to build it. Like, this is like what pushed me to be in it. But like, while I was in it, I was like learning so much more stuff about myself. And I've come to like market in a way that just like, I now know where I sell from, where I deliver from. Like those things are just so invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we work through in content by design, we work through all of the pieces of your design, many of the pieces of your design. And I never look at anything as just one piece of the design. Like, I don't believe any of us can say, well, you're a manifesting generator, so, or you're a 6-line profile. So like, there's so many nuances. And I feel like in content by design, we really get a chance to look at all of that because we're looking at your Mercury and we're looking at your Mars, your core wounding. We're looking at your profile, who you're here to be in life. We're looking at your overall purpose. We're looking at who you speak to, how you speak, all of those things. So it really gives you a robust way to say, how you said, well, I could be on Instagram, I could be on YouTube, I could be on Facebook, because it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You're speaking from who you are all the time, or the goal would be to be speaking from who we are all the time. But often we get lost in thinking, well, this influencer is teaching me to do it this way, so I better do that. And then this influencer says I should do it this way, so maybe I'll do that. And we get so scattered all over the place that we don't know which end is up in our message. And it's so important to have a really clear message.
Oh, amen. I know I know you guys can't see, but I'm like sitting here shaking my head. Yes, Vickie, yes, all the things. And I just think too, like we learn about the gates, and like, I love, like, it's just this like study of self. I'm so obsessed with like learning about myself and like not self-improvement, but like, just more knowledge and getting to know yourself on just such a more intimate level. And, I've said this before, but I think, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So as I'm getting to know myself so deeply, I'm getting to learn my business so much more. And I think human design helps so much with that because it's such a knowledge thing, it has so much to teach you, I guess. And so does your business, right? So being able to interweave the two is so powerful.
And add the microdosing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I
yes.
you've got
if you want to go on a really wild journey.
So what is your creative process like? Because you're showing up a lot on Instagram now. And you've created a guide, like you did that very, very quickly. You pulled together that microdosing 101 guide and just like, it was magical. All of us in content by design were reading it and going, oh my God, I want a copy of this. So what does the creation process look like for you now?
I have to be in a place where I think this is a manifesting generator thing. I have to be doing what lights me up in the moment. Mm-hmm. If I sit there, I have a corporate job too, right? And God bless them. But I cannot sit there and do that corporate job for, 8 hours a day and then expect to go create microdosing 101 guides, right? Like I have to do what's lighting me up in the moment. So, it was all about like, that fire was inside me. It was like, create the microdosing 101 guide. So I'm like, boom, creating the microdosing 101 guide. You know what I mean? And it's really all about like living in that moment. And microdosing helps a lot with that. Like really, kind of getting into this creative, like all the noise kind of quiets. And it's not about like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It's more about like, no, like I want to be doing this and I'm giving myself the permission to do that.
Mm. And you have a lot of pressure in your design. So I find oftentimes with people with so much pressure, so you have an undefined root and an undefined head, which are the pressure centers. So there's all of this mental pressure, and then there's adrenalized pressure. So it's like the pressure to do and the pressure to think about things. So it's like constantly putting pressure on your entire design where you can quickly fall into that loop of, I got to get this done and then I can rest. I got to get that done and then I can rest. And then you're thinking about things as you go to bed at night. And I would imagine the microdosing helps to kind of calm that pressure a little bit so you can access your creativity a little more.
Oh, amen. Yeah, it really does. I am such an overthinker. I think our first session, you were like, oh yeah, I bet you think all the time, but like you're not designed to. So now when I get in like those thought loops, I'm like, okay, this is the pressure, right? I'm just feeling the pressure. But yeah, microdosing really helps with that. It helps to just kind of calm and quiet, helps me get into my body, and as we all know, like, I think, when your creativity doesn't come from like your brain, right? Like it's more of like a body interweaving spirit coming through type situation. So yeah, it definitely helps to get all that information in. But yeah, I'm definitely I do a lot before I can rest. So it is nice to have something to support me. Number one, knowing my human design, right? And then number two, the microdosing to help support my life.
One of the biggest questions that I get over and over and over and over and over again is how to create in response. And you just nailed it. You're like, well, like the energy was there for it. Like you can feel it in your body. And I mean, this morning I did a whole bunch of videos. Some of them have things to do with my business. Some of them do not, but I was just like responding. So the key is to access your creativity in that moment when if you possibly can, as a generator or manifesting generator, because you're here to live in response. And that's when you'll be the most magnetic, is when you're drawing people to you that way. But sometimes people don't really grasp how that actually could look in real life. They're like, oh yeah, but because that's when we also condition ourselves, right? You could have just as easily gone to create that microdosing 101 guide or any of the Instagram posts that you've been creating lately and been like, oh, well, what's so-and-so from high school going to think? Or, oh my God, my mother sees my page. What's she going to think? Or, like all of the things, or somebody from your corporate job. Like we have to really be fearless as generator types to go where the universe is calling us to go.
Yeah. And the universe is like, it's not calling you to show up half-assed, like the universe wants you to be fearless, because when we can be fearless, that is when the magic happens. I mean, I think as you were saying that, I was just getting like goosebumps. It's just like, for example, in one of my very good like creative flows, I created a 30-day content plan, right? I was like, I'm going to post every day. It's going to be so great. And then as I go back and I look, I'm not in response anymore, right? Like now I'm, oh, well, that sounds kind of like, but I really want to get this Instagram post out. And people can tell, like the energy is not there. And some of those posts, like if I go back and look, I'm like, every post where I'm creating a response has, all the likes, all the comments, all the shares, the stuff where I just was like, oh, I really got to post something on Instagram. It's like 3 likes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do believe that the stuff you create, like it is going to hit the people that it's meant to hit. So even if I do create something half-assed, like I do think it's still helpful, and it's helpful for me, right? To like get in the flow. But I definitely think creating a response it's the way to do it. Fearlessly creating a response too.
Yeah, definitely. One of the ways that I always suggest that people work with the energy when it's on is to actually free yourself by having a social media scheduler. So that then when you're in response, I mean, sometimes, and you've got an emotional wave, so your creativity is going to flow along with that as well. When the energy is there for it, you can crank out 10, 20 posts, and then sometimes people stop themselves because they're like, well, I don't know what to do with all this. Or they put it in a Google Doc and then they never go back to the Google Doc. Like get a social media scheduler. I love SmarterQ. It's my absolute favorite. I'll make sure that's linked in the show notes for you. But you could use any social media scheduler that you want and just get it in there so that you always have this shell or skeleton to fall back on. You and I, Sarah, both have second lines in our profile. So I'm a conscious second line profile, a 2-4, and you're a 6-2. And that 2 line needs time to hermit away. So there are going to be times where we just cannot be where the people are, and the people are on social media. Do you find that you have to give yourself that space from it sometimes, even when you do love social media?
Yeah, I need to do that, right? And if I post from my like hermit spot, it sucks again, and that's something though, I think, I have that unconscious 2 line. So like allowing myself to do that has been, once I learned about it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true. And then just giving myself the permission to go and be a hermit it's been so great. And I love the idea of a social media scheduler and just like cranking out social media posts, that energy is already behind it. And then when I can go back again, when I'm in response, then, it's just like that energy is building.
You recently used a question day or Q&A day in your Instagram. And I guessed by all the responses you were giving that you did really well with that. Can you talk to me about how that worked?
Yeah, it was definitely also like there was pressure, right? Of like, oh my gosh, I got to get all these questions answered. But it was more
Uh,
about like, no, I have to do this when I'm in response because I want the energy to be there. And when we can show up for ourselves, like we can be proud of what we're doing. And like, I think, when manifesting generators and generators can be in response and like, who doesn't love to be proud of themselves, like
mm.
so like going back and looking at your stuff, like I've saved it all as a highlight. So if you want to go check it out, it's in my Instagram. But like, yeah, the energy is there when you're in response. And so like the day was ending and I had gotten a bunch and I was worried that it wasn't all going to like show up, in that 24 hours. So I screenshotted it and I was like, okay, do this when I'm in response again. But then luckily, like I woke up that next day and I was fine to get them all done. But yeah, I think it's just so much more powerful when we can support ourselves as who we are supposed to be.
Yeah. So if you're listening and well, obviously, if we're in your ears, you're listening, but when you're listening, so it can be a really good strategy for a generator or a manifesting generator to do those Q&A days on social media. If you're finding that you have nothing to respond to and you're like, I don't know what to get started, ask your audience, ask them what they want to know. Ask them, I think Sarah's was like, what questions do you have around microdosing? Sometimes I do hit me with questions about your human design or your business. And it just gives you a starting point and it just like, it turns on the response magic in you like nothing else will. So it's just a fun thing to play in your energy. So if we go back to content by design, the course where we learn how to create content based specifically on your human design, personalized to you. What was something that surprised you that you learned about how you're here to communicate or what you're here to communicate?
So many things. The gates were super interesting. I had no idea. Well, I mean, because there's so much information when you first learn about human design. And so being able, okay, I'm a manifesting generator, right? I've got an emotional wave. Like those things are kind of like easy to like grasp. But those gates, I was always like, what the heck? So having the resources in Content by Design to be able to look through my gates and understand what each of them mean, it was so great. Like, and I had so many like defined centers in my throat, and I have a defined throat, right? So like always being able to access the energy, right? Like it's basically like I'm always going to have something to say, like, and I'm always going to be able to say it. So, that was such a powerful thing for me to learn because, I am conditioned to like, sit down and shut up sometimes and like, oh, you're too much. And that's, it's okay for me to be too much. Now it's like, I'm in my like, hell yeah, I'm too much era.
I love it. Love it. And with your 6-line profile, you're in the era, the uncomfortable era. Most times people that are between 30 and 50 who are a 6-line profile are uncomfortable. Like I've not met someone yet. I work with a lot of 6-lines actually. And they're all in this like, oh my God, this is painful. What am I doing? But you're integrating so many life lessons. And I feel like for you, or I see in you, you're integrating your human design. You're using the microdosing to help with all of this integration process. And like, you're happier than I've ever seen you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, and I think that was another thing that I learned in the Content by Design course, because there's other women in there, right? So like there was a woman in there who was in her, I think she was just starting right in her last phase, in her 50 plus.
Yeah.
And it was just so cool to see how like she was showing up. Like she was such a badass. And I'm like, all right, like that's me, right? In 10 years, like I've got some stuff to look forward to. Yeah. And then also to just be able to understand like, okay, so the 0 to 30 is more like a third line, right? So like running, what was it? Like going fast and breaking things. And I was able to like look back and be like, oh shit, like that's what I was doing. And now I'm supposed to be uncomfortable. This is supposed to be not the most amazing feelings, right? But I think there is so much beauty in learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable. Like, you know what I mean? Like finding your home, finding your center, being able to be with yourself. And human design and microdosing have really helped me so much with both of those things.
Because part of your integrating as a 6-line profile is like you represent the new way, the thing we're moving into, the energy that we're going forward with. So nobody really knows how to do that yet because you're going to role model it for us as you integrate your life lessons and move into your next phase. So it's just I think that was kind of neat to see in Content by Design because there were quite a few 6-line profiles, lots of 4-6s, but there were quite a few 6-line profiles where you could see, and they were able to say, well, what I would have wanted in my first phase was I wanted someone to hold me, I wanted someone to take care of me, I wanted someone to tell me that it would be okay, that I wasn't a screw up, all of those things. So
Yeah.
it's just neat to see. I believe that human design is as much art as it is science. And that it's all about your lived experience. Like I always want to hear someone's lived experience before I share my book knowledge with them. Like I can share book knowledge all day long, but I don't know what it actually feels like in your body to be a 6-line profile. So you sharing that is just so juicy for everyone else that comes after you. That's part of your purpose as a 6-line profile, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because like as I'm integrating my life's lessons, right, I'm so eager to teach about it. And like, which I feel like is like, that's that role model coming out, you know? So I think that has been such a big thing for me in my own life, is really understanding my own emotions and being able to work with things that I don't feel super proud of or that are uncomfortable, and like really just learning to, you know, again, love myself through that, like this whole piece of like self-acceptance and stuff. And that is such a hard thing to sell, right? Like it's hard to be like, come work with me because you're going to love yourself so much. And people are like, oh yeah, like I can love myself, whatever. So really Content by Design helps me so much to put that into words and make it practical and make it something, you know, that people actually like want to buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually, I was re-listening to a podcast episode that my editor had edited for me today. And it was all about that. Like you're missing the so that in your content. So in Content by Design, we really talk about, yes, you might be selling self-awareness or self-discipline or self-love, but like, that's not what people actually buy. They actually need the story behind and what that's going to give them in the long run. And I feel like, you know, what's coming to me now is like Content by Design. We're launching again in September. So Content by Design and a microdosing journey could be just the thing that could really knock it out of the park.
Oh my
Not
gosh,
your first microdosing journey though.
Yeah. 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 That one's a little wild.
Yeah.
Come to me for the first one, and then in September we'll get ready to do
Exactly.
Content by Design.
Yes, you definitely want a co-pilot. And we're laughing because I hired Sarah to work through a microdosing journey, and it has been completely different than what I expected. Because why I asked that question in the beginning about, do you think it calms your chaotic manifesting? Because that's what everybody sells you, right? Everybody sells you, you're going to calm down. You're going to be like, I'm picturing myself on a mountaintop, like with the Buddha hands, you know, and I'm like, and my microdosing journey hasn't been like that at all. So thank God for Sarah. And we will do a full episode on microdosing so that you can get a little bit more information on that. But today we just wanted to unpack a little bit of Sarah's design, a little bit of microdosing, and a little bit of Content by Design for you. So who would you say that the Content by Design course is for?
I think it's really for anyone who wants to like get to know themselves, and maybe who has a little bit of trouble just like understanding what they want to, like how they want to get their message across. I think it's so helpful to really nail it down and speak it how you're meant to speak it. So, and then I think, you know, like if you're new to business, it's such a great resource because you have so many women in there who are supporting you along too. Other people have their eyes on your stuff. And then Vickie is just so phenomenal at like all of the human design things. It's so, I mean, you're going to walk away from it really standing in your power, I think, in your business.
And that's what it's all about. So, you know, if you're not selling the amount of programs, courses, coaching sessions, reports, whatever it is that you sell in your business, if you're not making the money that you want to be making in your business, that you need to be making in your business, I would always bring it back to a messaging problem, because I'm sure that you're great at what you do. I'm sure that if you're listening to this podcast, you're amazing at what you do, but maybe you're not saying it in a way that someone can understand the transformation that they're actually going to get by working with you. And what we do in Content by Design is look at all of these nuances of your own human design. So Sarah said, like the thing that you're meant to say and how you're meant to say it. And then it feels more natural. It's not this formula that you're trying to follow that somebody gave you, that you feel stilted every time you get to go on a live video or every time you go to write a post. It feels like so much work. No, we want you feeling like totally natural and powerful so that it just flows out of you and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that it could be this easy. Like who knew? And people are actually responding to you and buying your stuff.
Yeah.
That's
oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I love what you said about how like, then like, you know, then you can go into a live and know exactly what you're talking about because you're so comfortable saying it. And you're so like, it's so ingrained in you because it's a part of who you are.
Yeah. It's what you were born to say, literally. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. I always love spending time with you. I love it when I get to hang out for a few minutes with you or an hour with you in one of the calls. And I will definitely have you back to talk about microdosing more in depth in the future. Can you tell our listeners where they can reach out to you? And I will put this in the show notes for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I am on Instagram most of the time, so you can find me on there, and then definitely grab my microdosing 101 guide. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a great freebie. I read that. I don't very often get through a whole ebook, but I read the whole thing because I was like, yeah, this is gold. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good. And I'm not just saying that because of content by design. It really is really a valuable resource for people. Like you get out of it what you need to get out of it to get started thinking about. If you're already thinking about microdosing, Sarah answers all of the questions that you already have that you're too scared to ask. She answers them in that guide. Thank you very much for being here, Sarah.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm so happy. It's been so fun. I love hanging out with you too.